Hi, and welcome to Connect, where in this month's episode, our CEO and Davey meets up with Susan Davis in Sydney to discuss the history and development of the massage therapy industry. Susan's mum, who was a trailblazer in massage education and striving to give the industry fresh air away from sex workers, while Anne and Susan also chat about the future of our industry. Stand by.
Clinical myotherapists combine fundamental health science knowledge with manual therapy, pain management and exercise therapy to help people recover from pain and injury, improving their physical function and quality of life. Its methods of physical and orthopaedic assessment share similarities with other allied health disciplines such as physiotherapy and osteopathy. Draw on 60 years of academic excellence and experience. This course is the longest established degree of its type and meets requirements for all leading professional myotherapy associations in Australia. Progress from a diploma to a bachelor's degree with many subjects now available for flexible online study.
Hi, I'm Anne Davey, CEO of Massage and Myotherapy Australia, and I'm here with Susan Davis, who is a long-time member of our association. Welcome.
Thank you.
To this episode, and welcome to our audience to this episode of Connect. So we're here in sunny New South Wales at your
Sydney.
clinic. Yes, at your clinic, and I am super excited to have a chat with you because you've been in the industry for
Nearly 50 years.
Nearly 50 years. So we won't talk about age between us, will we? But
Please.
So perhaps, if you can tell us a little bit about your career, I know the story, but how you started and then got into massage, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I started out as a registered nurse. I actually did nursing at Royal Alexandra Hospital for Children. Wow. And I finished that in 1977. Mm-hmm. And at the time, my mum was working very much in the massage industry, and she needed help.
Right. And
so I decided to come and give her a hand because she was teaching. They had a course. They were teaching massage.
So we need to remember that was pre the current health training package.
Yeah, that's right.
Long before it was ever envisaged. Yeah.
So that was, I can't think of the date. Anyway, it does not matter.
No.
So I helped Mum out with work. But the thing is, I actually discovered during nursing, I found that when I was highly stressed at work, I had a lot of difficulty. And some of the difficulty I had was managing writing and numbers, and particularly in areas like intensive care, that sort of thing, ICU, couldn't manage very highly stressed situations. And I still don't do it well. And I found that I was better off not putting myself into that situation. I now know, due to my son who went and had checks done, that actually I'm quite dyslexic. Oh. And so therefore it was better for me to be in a safe environment. Now I've worked in aged care and I've done quite a lot. I've taught swimming, I've done an awful lot in my career, but being away from that high intense area was very good for me, being totally away from it.
So moving into massage.
Into massage, yeah. So at the time I did the course with Mum and Dad because they had the course going.
So both your parents were therapists?
Yeah, both. Dad was a pharmacist to start off with, and then he helped Mum out with the business as well.
Yeah.
And Dad really sort of was the business mind behind it.
Right.
And then I also did massage with in sports medicine because I was very interested in sports. I actually trained as a swimmer.
Oh, did you?
And yes, I'm Shane Gould era.
Oh, okay.
And I realised I enjoyed working with sports people. So I was a member of the Sports Medicine Association.
Yes.
And I also became a sports trainer when they first started sports trainers in 1983. So I was very interested in all of that. And so I did some training in sports and aimed to hopefully go to the Olympics, but actually every time there was an Olympics on I had a child or something else happened, and so I never got to be in an Olympic. You had to commit yourself to a group, and I wasn't able to do that. So at that time Mum was working to put the TAFE course into and organise the TAFE course. So we gave up our education training
package,
and we moved it into TAFE when they took over the...
So the original TAFE course was based on
my mum's training course
module. Yeah, that's very significant because it's still, you showed it to me before, and it's still the underpinning knowledge of what we now know as the Diploma of Remedial Massage.
Yes, which was interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, all those years ago.
All those years ago.
Yeah.
So that was in, I think, was it in the 80s?
Yeah, I think I read in 84, possibly.
Something.
Yeah. So, and at that time, I'm not sure if it was you and your mum or if it was... What's your mum's name?
Cynthia.
Cynthia. So Cynthia was aware that having a professional association would really benefit the industry.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, sure. At the time, there's a whole story that goes with Mum. Mum was working down the road, actually not very far from here.
Oh, wow.
And she had she was working with Kitty Homar, who was one of the examiners for the New South Wales New South Wales Association of Masseurs.
Oh, okay.
Way back.
When it was a state-based association.
And so she was an examiner, and Mum did some work with her, and she was a registered nurse as well. So they had something in common, and my dad was working off doing something else. He was working for a big American company, and so my mum wanted something to do, and that's why she went back to doing it, because she actually trained when she was nursing. She worked with polio patients and worked with Sister Kenny, and she was trained how to take care of muscular problems and that sort of thing with children with polio.
Right.
So that was in 1945 to 1950.
Yeah, see, people think massage is relatively new. It's not.
No.
Is
Oh,
it?
no.
No.
No,
It's
no.
been around.
I have a picture which actually, I don't know whether you attach anything to these, but it's the World War I thing which I hung on to show you.
Oh,
and it's 1918. It was the new Australian masseurs contingent that went to World War I.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow.
And you see, what happened was, in those days, there was massage and that was it. And they worked under doctors.
Yeah.
And then when electrical treatments came on, and vibrations and shortwave therapy and all that sort of thing, the masseurs, they divided the training, and they then had the Australian Masseurs Association registered massage therapists, and also the first physiotherapy course, and it was called the degree in physiotherapy with the acute and stuff on it.
Yes.
And then they decided that that's what they were going to become, was physiotherapists. And at that time, they decided that their code of practice was going to be that it had to have they had to be treating a particular problem. So it had to be evidence-based, and it had to be totally about the pathology of a problem. So therefore there was a group of massage therapists that were not in that area, because massage is done just for relaxation and just for health and all those sort of things. And so therefore that group of people were isolated. And Mum was one of those. And they approached the Physiotherapy Association to have an umbrella or an adjunct of the association for massage therapists, but they refused. And so if they still refuse today, which they still do, physiotherapy is still very difficult, it's because of that originally. And they actually didn't have, and I still don't think their code of practice has changed, that they do anything for preventative care. I don't think it's changed. So they only work from a pathology base,
as opposed to preventative care.
Preventative or holistic or anything else that massage would be included as. So Mum was isolated off with that group.
Right.
So
I just want to explore her role in the association back then.
Oh, okay. So that group of people that were separated included Kitty Homeyer, who was down the road. That my mum, she wanted to retire, so my mum took over her business and ran her business down the road. And we went to a meeting in 1977. And at the time they had been lobbying government. They had tried all sorts of things to try and get massage acknowledged as a profession or something. Right? Nothing. It wasn't even a profession. There was nothing. If you did massage, body massage, if you weren't a physiotherapist, you were doing prostitution. That was it.
Yes.
And my mum was there at the meeting, and they all said, we're not going to follow through with this, we're going to fold this. They'd had enough. And so they were folding the New South Wales Association of Masseurs. And so my mum was absolutely desperate to keep it going, because she felt that it was what we needed to keep going as a profession. And so they had actually decided they weren't. They'd
already decided
that was it. They were going to shut up shop. And so, but my mum went in there and took it over, and she was voted in. They accepted her, and she was voted in as the president. So it wasn't nobody stood for president. It was they were done. They were done.
So
they were done with it.
Almost creating a whole new association.
In a way,
In a way, And then she led that. And the reason why she was so she felt it was so important was she did the work with Sister Kenny. She'd seen what massage could do with polio kids and work with polio. She was working with Kitty Homeyer, could see what massage could do there, and they moved up to the corner up here. They moved up the road, and she was very conscious of how much expensive it was, so she was doing lots of hours to pay for the rent up here. And some people walked through the door, and she was charged. So she was charged with. Your mum was charged with prostitution.
They came up, and originally, first off, a fellow walked in and asked her to pay some money for protection money. And my mum refused, because she was very.
Well, she was a massage therapist. And she wasn't.
And so she was and she was a nurse, and she wore a white uniform with badges and the whole works. And so they. She virtually threw him out. She was so distressed about the whole thing, and she chucked him out of the business. Anyway, 2 weeks later, the police arrived, and they claimed and came in and collected all the linen. They collected everything, and they took Mum to Central Processing in town.
How hard.
And she was so upset about that they could do that to a massage therapist. Now, Mum, very fortunately, was her, and I must be careful not to mention it. She was treating people. We are on the North Shore, and a lot of them were in Parliament.
Right.
And so they were able, that was New South Wales government, were able to get Mum
Support her.
and write a thing saying that she was
A massage therapist
and
in the
yes.
health sector. Yeah, well, that's very good. Yes.
So she actually got off, but it was a big shock for my father. He actually, I don't think my father ever recovered from that because he didn't think anybody could be charged for being a good person.
Exactly.
But my mum, it was a totally different thing. It was like, I'm going to fix this.
Yes. So what was her next steps after
So the
that?
thing was to build the association into something that was recognisable.
Right.
And so that's where they became a proprietary limited company and wanted to have, so they then became AMT.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Still a state-based association at
I
the
think it
time?
mostly was. They
Right.
had 12 members and they gradually worked it up to 200 members at the time. So we're talking small numbers of massage therapists.
Yes. But you have to start somewhere, don't you? Yes.
Yes, you do. Yes. And so, but I was reading before the things that this is what they wanted to look for.
Yes.
And the things that they were looking for was how should the profession of massage therapy be defined?
Yes. And we still struggle with that, don't
How did massage skills fit into the wider healthcare sector?
we? Yeah. And again, still struggle with it.
Did national differences exist in training? And we now have come over that because we now have the training package.
The National Health Training Package.
But
yes.
that's probably the only one. And the fourth one was recognition by other health providers.
Yeah. And I think that, when I say we're still struggling with it, I think that, and you may disagree with me, I think the industry has, stepped over the line just ever so slightly, but we do have more to do in that space. We do have
With
more,
other practitioners?
With other practitioners.
Oh, yes, I think so. I
Yeah.
definitely think so. I mean, I work quite a lot with all of them around here. And
Yeah.
I work with the physiotherapist because I can't do acute therapy at
Right.
all.
Yes.
So anybody who comes in with an acute problem, I virtually don't do.
Don't do.
I
yeah.
refer them to somebody else
Yeah.
to do. I refer them to go to a GP and then go from the
Which
GP
is
to the
good practice.
physiotherapist. We've got half a dozen fantastic physiotherapists around here
Yeah,
with
yeah.
very up-to-date equipment, which I
Yes.
can't even afford.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
$200,000 for some of them.
Yeah.
So,
but that is a good. You're a good practitioner to refer on. You recognise your limitations in your practice.
Oh,
so
yes.
You refer
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
Yes.
and I think that's terribly important.
Absolutely.
And so I work with them. The doctors around here know me.
Yes.
I've spoken to them, and so therefore, and I belong to the local. I'm an associate member, not a full member, but that's okay. Of our local medical practitioner group network, and I go along to their meetings.
Yeah.
Now, some of the things that they do, I'm not interested in, but
Correct.
I still go along. They have a dinner,
Yeah.
and but just seeing me and talking to me, they then hear about what it is.
So you're still in that education arena.
Oh yes. Oh well. I teach at Avondale at the university. I still am in the. I still teach in the chronic pain area for nurses.
Right.
I mean, I taught for many years at Cumberland
Right.
College, and the education I do is not about teaching somebody how to do massage.
No.
What it is actually helping nurses understand what massage is all about
Right.
and what it can do.
For their patients.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if somebody comes in and says that they're having massage, they don't chastise them because they don't say, well, that's not a health practitioner.
So-
That's not a
and-
health
yeah.
practice.
And that was where I was leading with, you're still educating people because you're involved in these networks to educate other modalities, other practitioners of the benefits of massage?
Oh, I work all the time. That's all I do. Besides clients.
Besides clients.
But my mum established malpractice insurance for massage therapists. She organised the first malpractice.
Really? Through the association?
Through as the president of the association, she did that. She was the first in Australia. She also organised a journal.
Right.
And the journal was, the idea of the journal was to put in information about how things were done or therapies, because she found it very difficult for massage therapists to spread their information of what they do and how they do it.
Well, back then there wasn't the internet.
No,
there where you could download research papers, or there wasn't even research facilities researching massage.
And I don't know whether anybody knows, but in 1983 she also established the first rebate system for massage therapists through HCF.
In 1983?
1983.
Really?
So that was actually dropped.
Right.
And then it was re-established through the things. Now, I don't know whether it was all a good thing, but I do feel that she wanted to establish the profession, that massage was a profession. It wasn't just a corner store rub.
Nice to have, yeah.
Yeah, and so she worked to do that, to establish that. And a lot of people might think that the fact that we have to have, I do feel myself that it would be nice if it wasn't controlled by health funds.
Yes.
But she did establish the insurance. She also established the first aid certificate, that they had to have a current first aid certificate.
Right.
And she put that down, and that was part of what that was called then was the Australian Register of Masseurs.
Right.
And that was then, unfortunately, when my mum stopped being president, was dropped. But I do feel, and that involved all of the associations around Australia. That was Queensland, Victoria, Western Australia, Adelaide, all of them were all part of it.
Right.
And they all wanted to be part of it. And that was, I think you saw the date, I think it was in 1974 or something like that, 84.
Yes, yes.
So it goes back a very long time.
It does go back a very long time. And what did your mum see that, like, what was her vision for that register for massage, like another layer to be recognised and taken as professional?
Well, that was the biggest thing, was because she had gone through the abuse that she had from the police.
Yeah.
And also the fact that she could be compared to prostitution, which my mother was. I mean, they took the sheets, they tested them. She was absolutely devastated.
Yeah.
She wanted to protect therapists from that, and in 1986 she put in a submission to Parliament to, when they were looking at prostitution, to take massage away from prostitution, and to have them two different, and that massage could be a standalone female profession.
Yes.
Because remember, it was female at the time.
Yes.
Female profession. And unfortunately, the reason that it didn't go through, and it had its troubles, was the same as what we struggle with now. Difficulty in identifying legitimate therapists.
Correct.
And what we still have problems with. And I cannot believe that it's all these years later. And that's what they said in 1986.
Yes, I'm struggling when I read that in your documentation before, and I thought we are still grappling with that. But, baby steps, I suppose, but it's less than baby steps. And we go back to education. It's educating the public as well, because with an unregistered...
Well, the way that Mum did the education was we became involved with sports.
Right.
And we supplied the massage therapy. We would take them, the association would do a training weekend,
Yes.
a couple of training weekends, and then we would go as a group and they would work at the end of the runs. So we did the Sydney marathons, we did the cycling, we did the swimming, we did all those sort of things to try and introduce massage in the sports area, which was allowed.
And if you look today, every Olympic team, every AFL team, every netball team, every basketball team at the elite level generally have a massage therapist.
I do massage, and I'm sure there's other people out there that do massage. I'm
sure
non-elite, and I've done dances for years as well.
Yes.
So, I mean, you know, I have this division. My youngest client at the moment is 14, and my eldest client at the moment is 96.
Wow. Yeah.
So that's the whole...
That's the scope of massage.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I did turn around once and say that I felt like I was a general practitioner of massage, because I don't specify that I do pregnancy, or I don't specify that I do lymph drainage, or I don't specify that I do something else. Sports only.
Yes.
So I feel like I'm a general practitioner in massage therapy. I don't know whether that's correct or not, but that's how it feels.
Well, on that note, you were one of the very, because you're a member with Massage and Myotherapy Australia now, even though AMT is still around. You were an early adopter of the Certified Specialist program.
I was.
Which I do believe envelops everything that your mum was trying to achieve, like a high standard of practice, a national best practice standard, something that will be recognised, that is, you know, we have approval from ACCC, we have a trademark, and, you know, like you went through that process very early.
Yes, and I think that the thing that I've noticed is, and this is the same as what they dealt with, and they dealt with back in the 70s when they were approaching government. The government is a single body.
Correct.
And you can't go with a million voices to that one single body. They want a one unified description of what's happening, where you want to go, all that sort of thing, right?
Correct.
And they also want one standard amongst everybody.
Yes.
And I felt that the certification, even though I would like to see it being certification of massage, not specialist, but that's
okay.
That's okay. The thing is that a lot of people don't realise that everybody in health practice goes through certification. I was over in New Zealand with the latest
For the
conference.
Yes.
And somebody said, why do we have to know whether we've got garbage bags or whether we've got hand towels on the side of the sink and whether we've got this and whether we've got that? And I just said, if I worked in a medical practice, they are certified, and it costs them, I've got to tell you, far more than what we pay to have themselves certified. But that is what the certification is.
It's a standard.
It's a standard of how you present your practice, and
quality assurance.
One of them turned around and said, "Oh yes, but you know we were taught to change our sheets every massage and all that sort of thing." I said, "The problem is they don't.
Right.
It doesn't happen." And I remember when I was talking to them that there was no even exit plan if there was a fire. There was no policies, no policies for anything, for any complaints.
Yeah.
You know, you must have a policy for complaints. You must have all these things, and that's what the certification did.
And
it covered all of those things. Yes, and that was so good. Not that I needed them, actually.
No,
I had them.
did not need them, but there are some members and some practitioners that
But
don't.
the thing is that my mother didn't have them.
No.
My mother didn't have them because they didn't need them then.
No.
And the thing is, when your hairdresser has to have a procedure and practice for somebody being sick in their hairdressing salon, why is it unusual that a massage therapist would have to have it?
Yes, exactly.
You know, like, to me that
it's
just
common
is
sense. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And I think...
And if you can turn around and say that you can turn around and say that every certified member that you have certified presents their business in this form because they've been certified, that gives you so much more power.
It does.
With the people that we need to listen.
The decision makers. Yes.
You know, and this is really hard to
it
get
is
across
really
that
hard.
people don't understand.
The certification is almost, and I don't like using these words, but it's fighting the fight that your mother started
Oh, definitely.
60 years ago.
Definitely. And I really do believe that if that's what she was talking about. And unfortunately, I mean, when I've been in massage long enough to know there was no licensing in America. And then at the time they were licensed, there was an awful lot of conflict.
Right.
Because they didn't want to be licensed because they said they were being controlled, and they weren't able to do the things that they wanted to do in their practice, so they weren't going to be controlled. And there was this big fight between everybody, so there was a furore. And the thing is that what I have seen since they've had licensing, because I've been around for long enough, that they get so much more done. And they're acknowledged in the natural therapies. They have a lobby body which is present in Parliament.
Yes.
And we don't have a lobby body that is present in Parliament, all because they're licensed.
All because they're licensed. And certification is
about as close as you're going to get, I think,
exactly.
here.
So you have had a massive career, but it's not only been in nursing, as we've talked about, it's all or not only in massage. What other things have you done, even up until last year, the year before you were studying?
Yes, I was actually. So to teach, which is what I have done, I had to do a Cert 4 in workplace training and assessment, which I did, and I also did a Bachelor of Health Science.
Right.
Back a few years. And then I did a Master's in Master's in Lifestyle Medicine, which I specialised in the area of sleep and pain, which was which is actually published in
our magazine, in our journal.
So that's got my research in it that I did for my degree.
Fantastic.
And then last year, and I'm a fellow of the Lifestyle Medicine Association as well. So I've stayed a member of the association because they're moving. Actually, probably one of the things that goes so well with massage is lifestyle medicine.
Okay.
Because we have people with us for such a long time.
Right.
And we can look at sleep, and we can look at their diet, and we can look at their exercise, and we can encourage them to change their lifestyle, which can prevent them from getting diabetes, prevent them from developing chronic pain. To prevent all these things, that it is a prevention degree, really. It's about preventing, and heart disease, of course, I nearly forgot heart disease.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So it works really well with massage. It really, it's very complementary.
Yes.
And over the years I've used both of them together. The other one which I've done, which I've only recently done because of COVID, because I had some time, which I then didn't have time.
Which is your most recent one,
Which is the most recent one I did. I did a graduate diploma in mental health nursing, and I did that because with chronic pain we see an awful lot of mental health. Ill health.
Yes.
They go together.
They do.
And that goes from young all the way through to old.
Yeah.
And understanding that was very important to me.
And you've brought that into your practice.
I brought that in as well. So now I work, and because I work with my husband, who's a psychotherapist and also a counsellor and an educator.
And an author.
Yes, we do that together.
Do you ever see each other?
No. He's just arrived back from Las Vegas. No, I don't see him. But it is really... It gives me a really good foundation to stand and say some of the things that we say, because I've noticed that every time I've ever talked about it, a lot of massage therapists say, oh, that's not in my scope of practice. And I go, yes, but if you have knowledge, then it is in your scope of practice.
Right.
If you have qualifications, and if you've studied with an evidence-based, practiced course, then you have
it may be outside
education.
the scope of massage only,
Yes.
but it's within your scope of knowledge.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as long as you have that knowledge, you can do that. And
Yeah.
it's the same as giving exercise if you've done exercise physiology or
Yes.
something like that.
Yes.
It is, and the complementary things that we see with massage are mental health,
Yes.
exercise physiology, lifestyle medicine, which is only just really taking hold, and yet it's been around for a very long time.
Yeah.
What else have we got? Oh, pregnancy. We've got and lymphedema,
And
causes cancer.
oncology, yeah,
And I did
it is.
represent the association for many years at the lymphedema.
Oh, did you?
Yes, I did for many years.
Many years.
And I
yeah.
just ended up running out of time.
Yes, no wonder with all your busy practice and all the studies that you've been doing. So we've talked about, you know, where you've come from with your mum, or where it began. What are your hopes and dreams for the industry? Where do you see it going? You know, we've talked about the safety of practitioners, which, you know, if any of our viewers have watched the last couple of interviews that we've had on Connect, where we've spoken to people about research into sexual harassment in the massage therapy practice.
Yes,
So,
which they did over in England.
yes.
And they unfortunately didn't want to listen to it here. Nobody wanted to confront it.
Wow. Yeah.
Because
well, there's a lot more
yeah.
research now, which is great. So we are, you know, yes, it's still there. So, you know,
Well, it's happened to me.
yeah. Oh.
So, I mean, you know, like I figure, not so much now since I'm grey, but actually it wasn't that long ago. I had a couple of young boys come through the front here and they turned off my alarm and they came in and I came out to see what I could do to help them from treating, because I don't have a receptionist here.
Yes.
And they did decide not to come in because they realised that I was an older lady.
Yeah.
But their language was quite unnecessary.
Yes.
And but many years ago, somebody jumped off the table while I was doing the neck massage, and I must admit I was quite engrossed in what I was doing because I was trying to work on the area, and all of a sudden he dived off the table and cornered me in the corner of the room. Now I had always been told, and I had fervently believed that the person on the table was in the vulnerable state because they didn't have their clothes on, right? Well, that's not true.
No,
If they are a particular type of person,
they're not vulnerable.
they are not vulnerable,
No.
and they're never vulnerable.
No.
And if you get creepy feelings, don't let them in.
No.
Doesn't matter how much money you're
No,
short of.
trust your gut.
Don't let them
Trust
in.
your gut. So we've got the association is very actively, you know, working on and trying to educate the public as to what is healthcare massage, what is therapeutic or beauty, or I don't know what the other massage is, and then you have the other, you know, unscrupulous massage shops. So, you know, is there anything, you know, what do you see moving forward, that we're further into the health sector, that we're more recognised by other professions, that the education changes? And
Yeah. I think I'm probably a bit like Mum. I would like to see more unification
right,
of massage therapists.
yes,
Across the line, instead of just being individual associations. But
right, yes.
that's my
Well, we do
my
have
thing.
5 associations called the United Associations that are working together, and I think our members and our viewers probably don't see the
No.
outcomes because, well, we're working in the background together. Yeah, but watch
But
this
they are
space.
so important.
They
It is
are
so important
very important,
because
and I suppose AAMT was the start of that unification,
Oh,
really,
yeah.
with the state-based associations,
Yeah.
which is now Massage and Myotherapy Australia. But AAMT was born out of those.
yes, and I
state-based-
think they were the group that Mum originally had as
Right.
the in the Australian Register,
yes.
because they could see what Mum was saying and what
Yes.
needed to be done
Yes.
to actually have a single voice for therapists.
Yes.
And you see, you don't, we talk about it, and we talk about the Physiotherapy Association, one body.
Yes.
We talk about the Nurses Association, one body. We talk about doctors, one body. We just don't need all, we can have them,
yes,
but we need a
together.
unified group of how we're going to go forward.
Yeah.
And we're still struggling with this identifying what massage therapy and what it is actually doing. We need to get that. And I know the counsellors now are getting money to actually work that out further. And I really hope we were there.
Yeah.
But we're not. So,
yeah.
but you know, who knows? We might be. But the other thing is, I think that also massage therapists, I would like to see that my fellow practitioners also get together more as a group and become more related as human beings, instead of just going for learning a particular technique.
Yeah.
Because the one thing I have learned over the years, and I have been to many seminars, many educations all across the world. I've learned in Canada, America, France, Italy, and England, and in Scotland. I've been to Scotland. I did courses there, and in Ireland, and in Australia with many different associations. The one thing I have learned along the way is that my body is my body, and it doesn't matter if you go and there's this wonderful person educating you and they do a technique a particular way, that might not suit your body. And I've been working for 50 years, and the one question I get asked over and over again is, how do I manage to do it? I do about 40 hours a week.
Wow.
So if you want to work and you want to keep working, the thing is to work within the parameters of your body.
Right.
And one of them, I'll give you an example.
Self-care.
I will give you an example. I went over to America and I was at the conference there, and there was a girl using the side of her arm to do the massage. And I thought, I've never used the side of my arm really. I've used my hands, I've used my elbows, I've used my knuckles, but I'd never used the side of my arm. So I thought I would start using the side of my arm, and we had a information thing. We did a workshop with her. And at the time it was fine. So I came back and started to work with the side of my arm. Well, I could not move my fingers.
Oh.
And the thing is that we have a nerve that travels down, as you know, down into your fingers here. And every time, because my tissue was like it was, I was pulling on that nerve, and I ended up not being able to use my fingers. So my big thing is to learn techniques, know about them, utilize them within your practice, but always come back to you as being your body.
Yes.
Good advice.
That's very good advice, Susan. So, well, I have to say thank you so much. I've thoroughly enjoyed this chat. I was so excited to come and talk to you. Good. Well, you've got so much history, and I'm sure we could keep talking for
there's
hours.
There's more than
there
that.
is more there. But thank you for your support of the association. Both you and Richard have written journal articles for us and provided us with so much information. We do really value all of our members, but thank you so much for today.
My pleasure. And anybody can always email me if they've got a problem.
Yes.
I'm quite happy to talk. I would love to.
You'd love to. And then we keep the networks going and the education going.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for joining us.